Hi everybody, welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're on the second part of our article about Yule.
Oh, that's right. Happy Yule, Pat.
Yeah, happy Yule, Mike.
Thanks.
And of course, happy Christmas, because it's all in the same time of year.
That makes more sense.
Right. Yeah. And of course, we said yesterday, people all around the world celebrate Christmas. It is thought of as a Christian holiday, but it's kind of just we call it a secular holiday. Everybody celebrates it. You don't need to be Christian. You don't need to be religious at all. It's just a fun kind of midwinter's festival. And as we learned, it's based on older festivals.
That's exactly right. Christmas wasn't just invented by someone 50 years ago. The idea of this kind of holiday has been around a long, long time. And one of the sort of grandparents, I guess you could say, one of the things that kind of was there before Christmas came along.
Grandfather Christmas.
Grandfather Christmas was this holiday of Yule. Now, this was something that was celebrated thousands of years ago, before the time of Jesus and the Christians. It was a Germanic pagan winter festival celebrated in Central Europe, what we today would call Germany, and some of the countries nearby. It was a pagan festival, not a Christian festival, an older religion. But it also involved food, fun, family, getting together with people, having a wonderful dinner and party to sort of break away from the long, dark, cold winter months that people were stuck right in the middle of. So they also had a similar holiday at a similar time with some of the same similar traditions, but for slightly different reasons.
Yeah, one of the different traditions they had was the wild hunt.
Yes.
When Odin would lead spirit hunters across the world. Seeing it would result in something awful, and if you spoke to a hunter, you might join the hunt. Maybe it was just a way to make sure kids stayed inside in the dark, cold winter, but it's a pretty cool idea.
It's a good point. Now we have Santa Claus going across the sky with his wild hunt of reindeer. And if you're a kid and you see Santa, you might not get a present. So parents do often scare their kids into bed on Christmas Eve by telling them, don't get out and see Santa. It's not the wild hunt, but they might be similar there. And they had this very special day or evening right before Yule, or what we would call Christmas Eve. And it was pronounced,
I think, Modronit.
Modronit. Okay. But this had nothing to do with the night before Christmas. This special day was all about female fertility, about the ability of a woman to make babies, and I guess also about the ability of the earth to come back from the cold months and grow things again in the spring, about new life. That was kind of the idea that they were having here. Is that related to Jesus and his mother Mary? That's also celebrated in Christmas? Yeah, maybe.
Okay. There are a lot of things that happened at Yule that still kind of happen at Christmas. And that's what we're going to look at in today's article.
Okay.
Reading. Before there was Christmas, there was Yule. The 12 Days of Christmas. The Christmas festival lasts for 12 days, starting on December 25th and ending on January 5th. However, this is likely borrowed from Yule, which includes a 12-day winter feast. The Yule Log. Here's another thing related to 12 days. The Yule log was a large log that was burned throughout this period. The idea was to create enough light to encourage the sun to come out and the days to lengthen. Even to this day, people still burn Yule logs. Christmas trees. The evergreen tree is now a popular symbol of Christmas all over the world. However, the idea of decorating evergreen trees actually comes from an old Norse tradition. Norse people would cover the trees with gifts, such as food, to persuade the trees to return in the spring. Father Christmas. The modern Father Christmas, with his robes, white hair, and beard, shares a lot with the god Odin. During Yule, Odin would travel around the night sky, delivering presents to children, just like Father Christmas or Santa Claus.
All right, so let's check out today. The first thing that we might say was borrowed quite closely from Yule, or maybe stolen from Yule, was this idea of the 12 days of Christmas. There's a famous Christmas song, the 12 Days of Christmas, where you count from 1 up to 12 and back down again. And so that was an idea that they actually had even before Christmas came along, from this holiday of Yule. Now, what exactly are the 12 days of Christmas?
Well, we find out in the article that the Christmas festival lasts for 12 days.
Okay.
Starting on December 25th,
Christmas Day,
and ending on January 5th.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's when you have 12th night, right? You take down all your Christmas decorations.
Exactly. That's when you should probably take those decorations down. I think January 6th in my town in Canada, they would come around and collect all the old Christmas trees.
Okay.
You could just like throw it out your front door and they would come and collect it. So yeah, it actually does last for 12 days. Most people will do their celebrating on Christmas Eve, the 24th and the 25th. But then, of course, a week later, we have New Year's. So that's all sort of part of the 12 days of Christmas. However, this idea of the 12 days of Christmas, however, this is likely borrowed from Yule, which includes a 12-day winter feast. So there you go. They had the same idea. They called it something different, but it was basically the same idea. And as everyone knows, Christmas, Chinese New Year as well, a lot of these winter holidays involve a big feast. What is a big feast? It's a religious festival. It's also a big meal. And often those two things do go together.
Okay, so that's the first kind of similar tradition. The second one is the Yule Log.
This is one where we do use that word even today, a Yule log.
That's right. Now here the word log is a cut piece of a tree. Once the tree is cut down, you use an axe or you saw it up into smaller, big kind of chunks. That chunk is called a log.
Okay.
You could then cut that down further into like planks of wood, or the logs can be used for building things out of wood and so on. So that's what a log is. We could say, Barry piled several logs together and tried to start a fire. Yeah, logs can be very big, or they can be just small, roundish pieces that you could build a fire with.
Exactly. But as you say, they still kind of do look like a piece of tree.
Yes.
We're not talking about something that's cut and straight and looks nice and you're going to turn it into a table. No, not quite yet. A log is a little bit different from a board or something like that that is cut. And it's perfect, yes, for putting in a fire. Here's another thing the article says related to 12 days. All right. And if something is related to something, it's connected to something in the way that you're related to your cousins and uncles and grandparents. We could also talk about how the Olympics is related to sports competitions all around the world. Chinese New Year is related to giving red envelopes and putting up decorations and having big meals. So there's a connection there. There's some relationship. These things are not totally different for sure.
Okay, well, what is this connection? The article says the Yule log was a large log, so a real piece of wood, that was burned throughout this period. So this 12 days.
That's a big log.
Indeed. So in that sentence, we use the word throughout. The log was burned throughout the 12 days. Throughout means either at all points in time or at all points in place. So we could say something is throughout the city. There are 7-Elevens throughout Taipei and indeed Taiwan. You see them everywhere. Or you could say, oh, I have tests throughout this week. Every day, every morning and afternoon, I'm doing a test. So depending, it could mean time, it could mean place, but it's all through that time or place. For example, the smell of Amy's delicious cooking spread throughout the apartment, so it was everywhere. So I guess you'd burn this big piece of wood to kind of help everyone stay warm.
Sure.
But there's a bit more to it.
That's true, absolutely. If you're celebrating for 12 days, it would make sense to keep your house nice and warm at the time. But it also says the idea of the Yule log, this big log that burns for a long time, the idea was to create enough light to encourage the sun to come out and the days to lengthen. This is a really good point. Here in Taiwan, people might not understand, but in the northern parts of Europe or Canada, the winter days can be very, very short. The sun might come up at 8 or 8:30, even 9 o'clock, and go down at 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon. And it does sort of feel like you're always living in night. And as we mentioned yesterday, People back then, they didn't understand the earth and the sun and how the days change as the seasons change. It felt scary, like God is taking sun away from you more and more. The land is cold and frozen. It was a scary time. So they're thinking, well, if we have this light in our house, this will hopefully encourage the gods or the spirits or whoever to lengthen the days, to make the days longer, thus bringing us back to spring and summer when the days are much longer. When we use this verb lengthen, we're just talking about making something longer. If you've got to lengthen your speech for a class or something, it's got to take more time. It's 5 minutes. It should be 7 minutes. You need to lengthen it. If you're fixing your clothes and you're growing, you might need to lengthen your shorts or your pants, make them longer because your legs are longer now.
So we find that this is a tradition that still people keep. It says, even to this day, people still burn Yule logs. And the phrase "to this day" means it's something that started in the past, but it still continues in the present. And when we use this phrase, we're suggesting that this tradition or whatever it is has gone on for a long time. Now, before we move on to the next one, I do also want to mention the Yule log can also be a dessert. It's a cake.
Right.
It's kind of a cake, a sponge usually in the shape of a log, often rolled up like a roll of stuff. You can get small ones.
You can.
But cover that in chocolate and lots of kind of white icing stuff to make snow.
Kind of looks like a log.
Yeah, put a little robin toy on it or something like that. I really liked that when I was a kid.
Those are delicious cakes. I think it also sometimes calls just a Christmas log.
Yeah.
So Yule log, Christmas log, it's still around both as a piece of wood and also as a cake that people make. And how about Christmas trees?
Oh, of course.
Everyone knows Christmas trees, right? It's one of the most popular things with Christmas. It actually also has a long history going way back to the Germanic times, back to Yule.
Okay, we see in the article, the evergreen tree is now a popular symbol of Christmas all over the world. Of course, even in Taiwan, you can see Christmas trees in shopping malls and in places like that, toy stores. Now, the Christmas tree is an evergreen tree. An evergreen tree is a type of tree that keeps its leaves all year. It doesn't lose them when it gets to autumn. They don't change color and fall. In fact, some evergreen trees don't have leaves. They have kind of long green sort of needles, we would call them. And it's those ones that we often use as the Christmas tree.
That's absolutely right. And of course, the Christmas tree is a well-known symbol of Christmas. And yes, when we talk about a symbol, we're talking about a sign, a picture, something like that that stands for something, or we know what it means. You don't have to use words. You don't have to use the name. You don't have to tell me what it is. By looking at that sign, that small picture, that symbol, I already know what it is. For example, here's a symbol you guys might know from your phones. If there's a dot with a line above it, a bigger line, and another bigger line above that, that's the symbol a lot of people would know for Wi-Fi, right? So if you see that on your phone, if you see that on a sign in a store or on the MRT or something, you might know, oh, that sign means Wi-Fi is available here. The Wi-Fi is turned on, something like that. We don't even need to use the letters Wi-Fi or tell you anything. Just use that symbol. For example, I think this symbol on the clothing label means the shirt is made from cotton. Yeah, right. Cotton has its own symbol. And that tells you what the shirt is made from without using any words.
All right, so we've got the Christmas tree, and of course, part of the whole Christmas thing is decorating it, right?
Yes.
You put the colorful tinsel, the lights, the big shiny balls, chocolates, and models.
Popcorn strings.
Maybe, yeah.
Some people do that.
A little star or an angel at the top, candy canes, and all the rest. So we do decorate Christmas trees, but as the article says, however, the idea of decorating evergreen trees actually comes from an old Norse tradition. So there's the word actually, one of yesterday's vocab words, and a new vocab word here is decorate. If you decorate something, you make it look prettier by adding some extra things to it. We just discussed decorating a Christmas tree. You might decorate a cake by putting some colorful things, some candles, some fruit on the top or whatever.
The person's name.
Yeah, and icing, that kind of thing. Here's another good example. The students decorated their rooms for Halloween.
Ah, okay. I can imagine what I can see. It's orange and black.
Yeah, spiders.
Witches, ghosts, spiders, pumpkins,
bats,
things like that.
yeah.
And it gives you a special feeling. We often decorate things for holidays, right? If it's, writing lucky couplets for Chinese New Year or putting up Christmas trees, decorating things is a big part of holidays, even for the Norse people, I think. I assume. All right, so Norse, this is a noun or an adjective. We could also talk about Norse people or Norse lands or places like that, or Norse history. And we're talking about Northern Europe, not Germanic. Yesterday we mentioned that's kind of what we would today call Germany. Norse would be just above that. So we're going up to Sweden and Norway, Denmark, places like that. Today, that part of Europe is called Scandinavia, but if we think of Vikings, you think of the country Norway, and you see Norse are very similar words. We're thinking of that very northern part of Europe, the land, the people, the history, and especially back in the old days, before these countries that we know today, like Norway and Sweden, before them, these were the Norse lands, the very most northern lands and people of Europe. So was it the Norse people who were the first ones to decorate their trees? Is that what we're learning?
We're learning that this tradition certainly comes from there. I'm sure other peoples around the world put stuff on trees as well.
Sure, if you're going to cut a tree and bring it into your house, that's a lot of trouble. You might as well decorate it.
Yeah. What we do see is that Norse people would cover the trees with gifts such as food to persuade the trees to return in the spring.
So they'd be hanging sandwiches on the tree?
Probably, meat I would have expected.
French fries would look great on a tree.
I
don't think they had French fries.
A string of sausages, maybe.
Ooh,
that'd
some
look
bacon?
Yeah, that's the sort
now
of
we're
thing.
talking.
Okay, so we use the phrase such as. They're talking about gifts such as food. Such as gives an example or more than one example. So gifts such as food. But when we use it, we're saying we're giving you one or two examples, but there are more. We're suggesting there's more. We're not going to give you the full list. We're just going to give you one or two so you can get the idea. And this was all done to kind of persuade the trees, not the evergreens that were still there, but all the other trees, the ones that shed their leaves.
Especially the ones with fruit on them.
Yeah, we're saying, come back. We need the apples and stuff.
That's right.
We need you to return.
In the same way the Yule Log was supposed to help tell the sun to return in the spring and summer, the trees were asking other trees and just growing things and life and all the food in your fields, all that good green stuff that we need to come back or to return. And that's what the verb to return means. It means to go back or to come back. If you go away from your house, unless you're moving or running away or something, you will return. Most people will leave their homes in the morning, go to work or school, and then return, come back or go back in the evening. For example, are you leaving? When will you return from your trip to Penghu? I know you're not moving to Penghu, you're going on a holiday, so you'll probably return or come home in a few days.
Okay, so that's one more tradition, and we've got one left.
Okay.
Father Christmas.
Santa Claus is Germanic?
Yes, originally.
Okay. Yes, the modern Father Christmas with his robes, white hair and beard shares a lot with the god Odin. That's true. A lot of those Norse gods do have big beards and stuff like that. So here we're calling him Father Christmas. You might know him as Santa Claus, but it's true. He has robes. I think some of the old pictures of Father Christmas, he's actually wearing a robe. He's not wearing pants and a jacket. He's wearing just a long robe. He's got the hair. He's got the big beard. He does kind of look like an old god. Now the robe, what is a robe? It's basically a long, loose coat or gown, something like that. You might not wear a robe when you go outside, but if it's cold during the winter, you might wear a robe when you get out of the shower or something like that. We might also call the special clothes that certain people wear, priests or judges or royal people on special occasions. They might wear these long robes and they kind of open and close at the front like a coat, but they might go all the way down to your feet. That's what we might call a robe. For example, on Easter Monday, the priest wore purple robes at church, and often at Christmas, they might wear red robes or something like that.
So what is the connection here? We see in the article, during Yule, Odin would travel around the night sky, delivering presents to children. Just like Father Christmas or Santa Claus.
Did he have a reindeer named Rudolph?
He had a couple of, he had like a 6-legged horse.
Okay. Did he sing Jingle Bells?
Unlikely. He might have had bells.
I think Odin should call his lawyers.
Yeah, someone's copying my style.
Someone's copying their IPR, their intellectual property. All right,
Okay,
guys.
well-
I don't think you can steal from old myths, but it really is fascinating how you can borrow from old myths and create new traditions.
Yeah, that's just exactly what we've done today, shown you a whole bunch of stuff and where it comes from. And we're now going to go to our For You chat question to talk a little bit more about the ideas we've discussed in this article.
For You chat.
All right, what is our chat question?
All right, well, the chat question is kind of using the same thing we've been talking about for the last 2 days, but looking at different holidays. What are some other examples of how old traditions, like Yule, have affected newer traditions or newer ones, like Christmas?
Okay, I guess one that's an old tradition would be the tradition around Dragon Boat Festival, when people threw the zongzi, the rice dumplings, into the river to save the poet and make all the water creatures leave him alone. And in the modern day, of course, we're eating those zongzi. I don't think we really throw them in the river anymore.
No, we don't, but we do race in boats the way they were racing to save the poet, the guy who had killed himself, and they respected him. They wanted to save him, or at least feed the fish so he wouldn't get eaten. So, of course, we're not worried about that same story that happened thousands of years ago, but we do a lot of the same things that the story says people did thousands of years ago.
Easter's another one. It's a tradition to have chocolate eggs and go on an egg hunt. But that goes to older traditions to do with an egg being the symbol of rebirth. So Easter, not just Easter, but again, older pagan spring traditions of that sort of thing. So you might think, cool, Easter, eat chocolate eggs, but there's older traditions that affect this ones we have now. That's why it's eggs at Easter.
There you go. So a lot of things we can learn from history about about modern things that we do that actually come from old events and old myths and legends from the past.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching. For English for You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
Happy Yule, happy Christmas, and all the rest.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Vocabulary Review.
Log. Tony cut down the large tree and cut it into smaller logs. He then put one on his fire. Throughout. There were problems with COVID-19 throughout the year 2020, and there continue to be problems now. Symbol. Put your fingers into the shape of a V. This is a symbol for peace. Decorate. Sue and Bob are decorating their living room. They are painting the walls gray. Return. I really like Thailand, so I think I'll return here next year for another vacation. Robe. The king entered the large hall wearing expensive robes, and everyone turned to look at him.
智慧小补帖
Feast. Evergreen. Norse.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net